this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. I'm going to do the everything in bloom on the 8th, but it's going to be relatively quick and I suspect there will be some blurred images. I've checked the weather forecast and we've just got cloud cover all day, and it's low cloud cover so the light goes. But I'll do what I can. I mean, at least we'll identify what's in bloom, even if we don't get close-ups. So I've actually got some small stuff in bloom at the moment. And it's just not enough light in here to do this justice. But we'll go round in the normal manner, starting on the left. And anything that's down in there today will be in a black hole, so it's not even worth pointing the camera at it. We've got one up here that I'll bring down. Of course, if I bring it down, it's got even less light. But this is my Miltonia primary cross. I'll do pop-ups for the names. But basically, this had 2 spikes. It's now down to 1. And basically, these are very attractive blooms with an unusual combination of colours. Yeah? What did somebody say? Somebody gave me a name for that colour. Burnished gold, I think it was, but it is an orangey, brassy sort of colour, which with purpley pink is just a strange combination. But it seems to work on that plant. That is a very typical Miltonia shaped bloom as well. Very typical for the species. Primary cross, that one, but as near as damn it a species. Right, what else have we got? We've got the Sherry Baby, not my blooms, it was bought in bloom from Burnham's. And attractive blooms, but quite honestly, in my book, I wouldn't buy this for the blooms. You buy a Sherry Baby for the fragrance, but you can buy it with some of the recently produced clones. Somehow or other they've just got some giant plants with massive spikes on recently, probably dosing them full of hormones or something, but that's what I've got. I mean, that is a massive plant for a Sherry Baby. Anyway, we're doing blooms today. Now we've got I'll dig this out, it's got to be worth it. I've got so little else. But tucked up in there, of course everything's covered in water because I've just watered my pots. Tucked up in here that usually gets completely forgotten is my Hibiki, which has only got a couple of, well, it's got one cluster of blooms and they're buried down in there. I don't know whether I'll be able to get that to focus close in, but we'll do what we can. Very attractive blooms, and that little single cluster on this plant has been there a very, very long time. Hibiki's worth getting for the combination of colours, that orange centre, you know, with the bright pink outside, petals and sepals and lip. Petals and sepals. It's an attractive bloom, and the fact that it forms clusters, you get a splash of those colour combinations. And under normal circumstances, it's quite floriferous, but mine isn't. For some reason, this one's only produced that one cluster and no more. It's got new growths bursting out all over the place. There's dozens of them. They're coming out all over the place, but no blooms as yet. Now, if there's something about this plant that it's going to wait for those new growths to progress and possibly produce buds, then it could be quite a mass blooming when it finally gets round to it. So I'm just putting stuff back where it goes. I'll spend too much time out here today. I've still got to get my plants ready for the show tomorrow, which isn't going to take long because I'm not taking many, as it happens. I'm going to be taking my Vanda, which we'll look at next. We don't need to get close to that to get that in focus. These are good sized blooms on here, and I mean, out of the plants I've got, that's probably the best one. It's a good spike, evenly balanced blooms, and it's quite a reasonable plant, that Vanda. Most of the leaves are in good condition. It's only got one missing, which forms an obvious gap, and it's got a good root system underneath it, so it looks like it's been grown reasonably well. It missed a year last year, but it's come back in again this year, so that one will definitely go. And next to it will be another one that I'll take. Both of these two will go in the competition, but that does mean, as far as the Tolumnia is concerned, I'm going to have to get it ready, because it's currently on a mount where they don't lend themselves to being shown very well on a mount, because they have to be on a stand, and so I will probably set it in a pot so that the blooms are at the right angle and everything. The plant can be seen nicely, and we'll see what we can do, but let's see if we can get close in. This is the hardest one to do a close focus on because of its colour. It's already dark, and when you haven't got much light, dark goes even darker. But that's but anyway, it's got two good spikes on it, so we'll see how that does. Again, it always depends what else is there, but as that will go in the Oncidium section, that could be quite a popular section tomorrow. We shall see. And then what have we got? We've got my orange Vanda, two spikes, but one of them's seriously going over now. It dropped most of its blooms over the last couple of days. This one's still in full bloom. It's a colour changer, and it's a strange one because it opens a sort of bronzy, dirty colour. It's not bright. And then after a while it turns into a nice bright orange, so it actually changes colour a bit different to some of the other colour changes, because it definitely gets better, gets a much brighter orange tone to it as it ages, and quite quickly. It doesn't take long, so it opens for a few days a sort of bronzy colour with some darker orange, and then it changes to this colour, which is very attractive. They're small blooms, you know, as Vandaceous types go, but that would be an Ascocentrum cross with a Vanda, probably. And they all got reclassified as Vandas anyway, so it's a Vanda. Such nonsense. And then the Regnellii, which is next one round, you've got blooms up there and blooms down here. So it's the same plant, but they're all over the blinking place. It's not worth taking that in, quite honestly. This bloom's going, this bloom's going, and several are starting to fade up there. So there's too many blooms on their way out to take such a large plant, which relatively has too few blooms. So, typical Miltonia shaped bloom again, Miltonia species, and yeah, I like it. It's a nice bloom. The petals and sepals come out white on the camera, but there is a pink, very pale pink flush in the centre of the two petals, and then the purple on the lip. So attractive. And then coming around here, the other one of my big Miltonia plants, the Moreliana cross. I cut the blooms off this morning, the last couple faded, and I took about half the blooms off of this one as well. This is the Spectabilis, Spectabili hybrid. Again, attractive colours, but you know, not a species, in as much as the species are not such a full bloom. They've got the gaps, yeah? That's the typical Miltonia shape, as was the first one we looked at. So this is a hybrid crossed with goodness knows what. So it just gets classed as a hybrid, but these are good sized blooms, and it's been a good blooming. It's a plant that's grown well for me, and in theory it should now push on its new growths and get ready to do it again next year, which will be good. Right, then coming round here we've got our sotoanum that labelled incorrectly, as most of them are. Ornithorynchum. That's what sotoanum is normally called, and it's incorrect basically. That plant in its true form is a yellow Oncidium. So if you see one labelled with that and it's pink, then it isn't, because it should be yellow. The pink one is sotoanum. Highly fragrant. Fragrance is gorgeous. Again, you don't buy that for the attractiveness of the blooms, really. You buy that for the fragrance, and they are tiny. I doubt if I'll get it to focus on one of them. but we can try. Missed. Something like that. But these are very tiny blooms. One of the parents for the twinkles, that is. So, right, where are we then? Coming round here, we've got the, this is a Phalaenopsis type Dendrobium, Thai Angel. I've had this plant a long time. It blooms on and off. The plant's not growing very well at all. It's been repotted now because I think the media was a bit old and tired. It didn't have brilliant roots on it, and it's now spent quite a long time without pushing out a new growth. And I doubt if it will now because it's got 2 spikes on the go at the moment. They're both coming off that cane with a single leaf on the top. Yeah. It's not a very good looking plant at all, but it's produced 2 nice spikes, very long lasting blooms, good colour, good shape, very attractive. I like this one a lot. That's the only reason I've kept it really, because the plant got itself in a right mess at one point and I struggled to get it to recover and produce a new growth, which it finally did. And then this Phalaenopsis type does actually have a name. Oh, sorry, I'm doing pop-ups, aren't I? But this one came from Burnham's. This was, when you go to Burnham's, you have to walk out with a carrier bag with something in it, and this was what I chose. Basically, as Phalaenopsis type Dendrobiums go, this is very attractive. No fragrance, or virtually none. But a good balanced bloom. Yeah, petals and sepals, lip, the coloration, the gradation, everything about it's just nice. It's just attractive, and when it catches the light, it's very attractive because the pale edges look like it's backlit. Looks like the sun's behind it. It lights up, so it does actually become more attractive if you've got the bright light, which I haven't today, as you can see. And then last of the stuff, without reaching up in the air in a minute, is the Victoria Regina. And the camera rarely does justice to the colour. A lot of people class it as a blue. It isn't blue, it's purple. But it is a purple that's close to blue. And you'll have a job to get... I mean, there are some of the Aussie Dendrobiums, some of the terrestrials, I don't know about epiphytes, they are true blue. They're beautiful colours, but it's very unusual to get blue flowers in the orchid world. And this is about as close as we get without going to those sort of Australian terrestrials. Attractive blooms, they open, they don't open flat, they open like a funnel shape. And because they open in a cluster, the petals and sepals get jumbled up amongst each other, and you just end up with a nice splash of colour. So that's took me a long time to get that colour in this grow room because I kept getting sold duff budgies, basically hybrids that weren't the true thing, and you have to wait for them to bloom, and then when they bloom, you realise you haven't got the real thing yet again. But we finally got the real thing. Right, and then the 2 up in the air you've seen recently in close-up form from the tripod, so I'm not going mad trying to do it again today. We've got my Aerangis Mr. Sidii, young plant, first time blooming, but the plant grew well. It put 2 new leaves up. It's grown some nice roots, including down the back of the mount now. It's got some actively growing roots. I'm happy with the plant, even though it's still quite small. And it has its first blooming with 4 buds that opened without blasting. So not too bad. You know, Aerangis are, well, you have to watch your step because some of them are notoriously short-lived. They'll often bloom for a number of years, undetermined. You know, you can't say, right, that's going to bloom for 3 years, then it's going to die, because you just can't say that. Some will last a lot longer than others within the same species. But some Aerangis are short-lived. And it could be disheartening if you've grown one well and it's bloomed well for a couple of years and then it just keels over for no reason, and you'll blame yourself. What have I done wrong? Well, you've done nothing wrong, and it's just one of the short-lived ones. And then we've got this tiny little thing here. There's no way I'm going to get a close-up of that today, handheld, but this is the Luteo alba variety Rhodosticta. I think I've remembered that right, but you'll get a pop-up. So if I've said it wrong, the pop-up will be correct. So 2 little Aerangis, 2 out of 3 actually. My other Aerangis isn't in bloom. Again, a young plant. It will bloom next year, I'm sure. It's pushed on quite a few new leaves and pushed out quite a nice root system since I got it. So we'll have some blooms on that next year, I suspect. That will be a single spike. The one I had previously had a beautiful pair of spikes one year, but then I lost that plant, so I'm starting again now. I don't need loads of Aerangis. 3 is probably enough. If you want a giant, what's it called? Aliciae, or I think, and it has leaves like Phalaenopsis, big strappy leaves like that. I had one once, and it started a flower spike. I was over the moon. It took 11 months for that flower spike to develop its buds and open its first bloom. And basically the blooms lasted quite nice, beautiful nighttime fragrance. I was well pleased. And then not long after the spike had finished, that was his first blooming, and not long after the spike had finished, I came down one morning and all the leaves were on the floor. Just dropped every single leaf, so I lost it. I've never known why. Never known why. Okay, so that's it this time. That's what's in bloom. I haven't forgotten anything this time. There's a couple of Restrepias that have got blooms on, but as I said, they're buried in the dark, and time to muck about getting plants out today. I've still got loads to do today, but we're getting there. I managed to get the. We had a mess up when my mum died. You have to get somebody to certify the death, a qualified individual like a doctor or somebody like that, and my sister called the sort of semi-emergency number, not 999, you know, the 111, and an on-call doctor came out and actually, you know, did the business and forgot to report it. So we've been waiting for the registrar to contact us to register the death formally, and it hasn't happened. And you're supposed to have that done within 5 days, and it's been over 2 weeks now. So I managed to get through on the phone, which is apparently nearly impossible. Said what the problem was, or what we thought the problem was. The registrar said they have no record. They will look into it. So I gave them the date and the time, and they basically tracked down the call to to 111 and who was involved, and basically got the paperwork done, phoned me back this morning, and I registered the death formally. So the death certificates will be in the post today. And then we can crack on, because the funeral directors couldn't move. You know, they couldn't move without the formal paperwork. So we've been waiting on that. So my sister's going to book up an appointment, and we'll go and, you know, get a funeral date set, which means, you know, we can book the place. We're going to have a gathering afterwards, and we can get moving on it all. And it also means I've got the certificates to go with the paperwork to start contacting various bodies like banks and things like that, to get stuff closed down, and get things like pensions stopped. Because the trouble is, if you let things carry on paying after a death, they become a debt, because you've got to pay them back, because they shouldn't have been paid out. And it'll be deemed your fault for not letting them know. So we can crack on with that now. If I haven't got enough to do. Anyway, everything in bloom on the 8th. Actually on the 8th for a change. I'll no video tomorrow, obviously I'm at the show. I'll see you on Sunday for a Sunday chat of some sort, and the video clips from the show I will put together probably on Monday, and then we'll go from there. Right, see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.